Guys, what's going on? I hope you guys are well. I hope you guys are staying safe. I hope everything's good wherever you are. Guys, I'm gonna read out this open letter that was written by a fan, and this is in an article, Boxing News 24, to Canelo Alvarez. This fan wrote a letter to Canelo Alvarez. And then I'll give you my thoughts about this particular letter that this fan wrote. It says here, "Dear Canelo, there was a time when I must have been one of your biggest supporters. I admired the way you bounced back from the Mayweather loss and how you kept improving both from a skills and ring IQ standpoint. You have always shown discipline and impeccable work ethics. Being popular as you were destined to become the new face of boxing, and you did just that. I have always looked forward to your ring entrances accompanied by Vincent Fernandez." I don't know what the Mexico Lindo y Corrido. I don't know what that means. It says, "Today, you're considered the best fighter in the world. And your main goal is legacy and entering the history books. In other words, you have arrived. Or so it seems, because you took the easy road. You managed to put asterisks next to many of your fights due to weight and hydration clauses, giving you a clear advantage over your opponents. You had some close fights in which you didn't separate yourself like the great ones do. Not to mention the fact that one cannot help but feel that you are often favored by the judges. A clear example of that, CJ Ross scoring your fight against Mayweather a draw. You claim that you're trying to secure your place in history books, but you could have already done it, pursued undisputed at 154 and 160, but you insisted to vacate each time, and you gave birth to the franchise belt designation many feel was tailor-made for you to avoid dangerous mandatories." Before I go on, is this letter wrote by Christian? This is exactly what Christian says. Christian, is this you that wrote this letter? "For someone aiming to go down in history as an all-time great, what better way to be undisputed in 4 weight divisions: 154, 160, 168, and 175. My goodness gracious me. I give you the benefit of the doubt for the Clem Boutro incident, and I believe it's not too late for you to correct the trajectory of your career. You have a great opportunity to silence your critics, and your next fight against Bivol is a step in the right direction. A top-level opponent and no weight or hydration clauses. Should you beat the Russian and go after undisputed at 175, fans will have no choice but to give you credit, full credit. All you have to do then is face Benavidez, because you're only undisputed on paper at 168. If you don't fight the boss of the division." When the hell did Benavidez become the boss of the division? God knows, man. "And one more thing. You have to see Charlo and Andrade because you avoided them at 154 and 160. Why leave any doubts? In my humble opinion, this is your roadmap to greatness. Sincerely, Mohammed.H." Wow. Oh, wow. Wow, oh, wow. Starts off praising Canelo, and then boom, he goes straight into it. He said, "Today you're considered, there's many asterisks near your name." Look, there's always going to be asterisks near everyone's name. No one's going to be perfect. If you want to go and nip and tuck people's career, there's asterisks near Floyd's name. There's asterisks near many other fighters' names. There's asterisks near all fighters in the history, if you really want to go and nitpick their resumes, there's asterisks over everyone's names. And Canelo's no different. But the reason why I give Canelo a lot of respect, because who's doing it like Canelo today? You've got a lot of fighters that are not fighting each other. Now, this guy has a point. Look, judges have favored Canelo. Judges do generally favor, because he's a cash cow. He's put himself in that position. He's a cash cow. And generally, I feel judges favor the politically more connected fighter. But Canelo's earned that position. So, yeah, you know, judges do favor Canelo. There have been some decisions. Has Canelo put hydration clauses in and rehydration clauses? He did it with Kovalev. Apart from that, I don't know if he did. Like, yeah, he fought Amir Khan and you know, he didn't put a hydration clause on himself against Khan when Khan asked for it. But Canelo was the A side. Even as a Khan fan, I know what Khan was going into. Khan knew what he was going into. Canelo was the A side. So Canelo's going to have the advantages for himself. That's what like any human being would do that, right? Any human being that has a position of power that knows that he can flex their muscles would do that. What is Canelo doing that's wrong? Look, even as a Khan fan, right? Khan fought him, but Khan didn't have to fight him. That was an opportunity for Khan, really, in terms of he was the B side. That was an opportunity for him to catapult himself onto another level, you know, by beating Canelo. Whereas Canelo didn't really have a lot to gain. Yeah, financially, you know, Khan was a big fight because Khan was a big name. So that financially would have made Canelo decent money at that point. And probably at that point, you know, bar the Mayweather fight, that might have been one of his highest paid, you know, paydays, because Khan was a big name at that point. You know, he was a big star. So yeah, Canelo would have earned some good money. But apart from, in terms of like, he didn't have anything to gain fighting Amir Khan, because if Khan made him look bad, people would have said, oh, you got made to look bad by a small guy. If he beats Khan, people will say, well, you're cherry picking a smaller guy. So he had nothing to gain in that fight. But in terms of these rehydration, Canelo's done it once against Kovalev. I don't know if he's done it any other time. I don't think he has. Personally, I don't think he has, and he's not doing it against Bivol. So he did go on to say that, you know, you're rectifying your legacy by now fighting Bivol, and if you go and become undisputed. And this guy says you could have been undisputed at 154, 160, 168, 170. That's not realistic, really, when you think about it, you know, being undisputed. I don't think you have to be undisputed out. Even being undisputed, like there's fighters that have been undisputed in one weight class. There hasn't even been a fighter that's been undisputed in two weight classes. Only in female boxing, Clarissa Shields has done it. But in male boxing, no one's been undisputed in two weight classes. So, you know, I think the only two that might go on to do it is either Terence Crawford or Canelo Alvarez. So the point I'm making, and Canelo, by the way, I'm not confident if Canelo becomes undisputed at 175, because, you know, there's some real stiff competition there. But the point I'm trying to make is that that's just unrealistic, you know, by saying he like, you know, he could be undisputed and he would have had some legacy. But, you know, that's unrealistic, really. So, yeah, you know, the hydration clause is a bit of nonsense there. Like, I don't agree with that. He's done it once, really. And you could probably say maybe he could have put a hydration clause on himself for the Khan fight. But that's ridiculous. Like, no one's going to do that. If you're in a position of power and you're the A side, you're not going to put hydration clause on yourself. That's stupid, you know. And then he says, I give you the benefit of the doubt for the Clembruto. Okay, that's an asterisk that's always going to stay over Canelo's name. I know that they said that, you know, they did the test after the hair test, the follicle test, and it came back very small traces. But unfortunately, that's going to be an asterisk, irrespective of what you show anybody or what evidence you provide. That's going to be there now. That no one's going to let him off for that. But one thing I don't understand is I feel like Canelo gets a lot more stick. Right? I don't know why it is. Roy Jones, I believe, failed a drug. You know, I don't feel like he gets, like, when people talk about Roy, nobody talks about that. Everybody just talks about how great Roy was and how special he was, but nobody talks about that. But I feel like Canelo gets a rough dig about that. You know, I know a lot of Canelo fans are going to say it's about race, and it's not necessarily. There's a lot of fighters that sometimes it's not. It's just that, you know, people love to hate, you know. And Canelo seems to be like that, because Roy was although as great as Roy was, I don't ever think Roy was ever like a big superstar like Canelo was. Canelo's a massive superstar. Roy wasn't as big a star as Canelo is. So maybe that's why, I don't know. And then he goes on to say, you're heading in the right direction, but then after you do become undisputed at 175, I want you to fight Benavidez, as Benavidez is the boss of the division. Or even though you're undisputed at 168 on paper, Benavidez is the boss of that division. When the hell did Benavidez become the boss of that division? What the hell has David Benavidez done to become the boss of that division? I don't know exactly. Where is people's... I don't understand how people rate David Benavidez so highly. I don't know why. Why is this guy rated like he's some kind of King Kong? Like, I don't understand why David Benavidez is rated so highly, where people are like, Canelo has to fight him, it'll hurt his legacy. Yet he's fighting guys like Bivol and better. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. But, you know, I'll take this guy's word, right? Canelo should fight Benavidez by the end of his career, because it's a guy that people want him to fight, even though I think Canelo absolutely dismantles Benavidez. But it's a guy that people want to see Canelo fight, okay? Then he goes on to say, add one more thing, you have to see Charlo and Andrade, because you avoided them at 154 and 160. Let's not get into, you know, whether he avoided them at 154 and 160. Did he avoid them? Why would he want to avoid them at, you know, come on. But, okay, we take this guy's word, he avoided them. What's my take on that? Look, I personally think that Canelo should fight Andrade and Charlo. There will be an asterisk. There will be people, it doesn't matter what Canelo does. Canelo can go and beat Anthony Joshua. There'll be people that have said that, well, he ducked Andrade and Charlo. So for me, for Canelo to completely shut the book and shut down, I personally think he should fight Charlo and Andrade. And I think because I think Canelo beats both guys quite handily. You guys know my opinion about that. But Canelo should fight them, because Canelo needs to shut all the critics up and leave the sport with no criticism. You know, there's always going to be someone for you to fight. The problem is that Canelo's been linked with these names for a very long time. So if he doesn't fight them, there'll always be people, oh, well, Canelo didn't fight them. Canelo didn't fight them. Because Canelo's name's been linked with this. Like, for example, Khan didn't need Brook, but his name was linked with Brook. So he kind of like had to fight him because his name was linked, and it would have hurt his legacy. Canelo's obviously done so much in his career, but because these two guys, even though they're not that accomplished, their names have been linked, people will always, there'll be certain section of the boxing public will say, well, you didn't fight Charlo and Andrade. Not majority, not people like myself, but there will be people. But Canelo can just shut the critics up completely, because to me, like, Charlo and Andrade look, for me, Bivol's a tougher fight. So for me, Canelo should fight them. They're big paydays, and for me, they're wins. They're comfortable wins. So Canelo should fight them, and shut the critics up, shut the haters up. He should fight these two. I would love to see him fight these two, because there has been an outcry from the Charlo and Andrade fans that Canelo's been ducking and dodging and avoiding. So Canelo should just put this all to bed and put it all to rest. Because we all know that Canelo's more than capable of beating Charlo and Andrade. You know, he's been in there with a lot of stiff. He's going in there with Bivol, who you could say is a much stiffer test than than Charlo and Andrade. But, this is something that Canelo, in my opinion, should do by the end of his career. I think he should fight Andrade and Charlo. Plus, I think the fights are pretty big fights as well. I think they're pretty big paydays for him. And I think from a legacy point of view, even though these are guys that don't do anything in terms of a belt point of view, I think these are guys that from a legacy point of view, Canelo can kind of shut the chapter on this and just shut it completely, because he'll beat these guys, man. But at the end of the day, like, until he goes in there and does it, the fans of these guys are going to always say, well, Canelo's ducking and dodging, and that will always be there. So for me, Canelo should shut the chapter on this. And I do think he should fight Benavidez. I do think he should fight Charlo. I do think he should fight Andrade. And I think these are all good fights. I think these are all big fights. I think they're all big money fights as well. So once Canelo becomes undisputed at 175, because I think that that'd probably be a goal, and that'd be something that, you know, Canelo would create history. I think then he should clean these 3 guys out, personally. I think he should fight these 3, and I think he could fight them all 3 back to back as well in a year and wipe them all out, because I don't think they're a stiff test for him. But that's just my personal opinion. I think people will realize when either of these guys step in the ring with Canelo, Canelo will wipe him out. But we'll see. We'll see. Leave your thoughts. But I do agree. I do with this guy in terms of I do think Canelo should fight all of these 3 by the end of his career. But leave your thoughts. Let me know what you think about this letter. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.